Hey everybody, welcome back to the HVAC ADHD Vodcast. I'm your host, Jeremy Begley, and today I'm joined by two seriously impressive innovators. Marisa Reddy and Shelby Breger are the co-founders of Conduit Tech, one of the fastest growing design and sales platforms in HVAC. If you haven't heard of Conduit Tech yet, you're about to. These two launched the company in 2022. And in just a couple of years, they've helped more than 700 contracting companies level up their business. We're talking faster, everything from more accurate load calcs, using LIDAR scans, to better sales presentations that actually close jobs profitably. But today's episode isn't just about the software, it's about the story. The journey these two took from outside the HVAC industry to completely rethinking how contractors design, sell, and scale. We'll talk about empathy in tech, the power of feedback, and what it means to build something that actually makes life better for the people in the field. Let's get into it. Welcome back to the HVAC ADHD Vodcast. I'm here today with Marisa Reddy and Shelby Breger, co-founders of the software that everybody knows and loves, at least in the top of the HVAC food chain these days, Conduit Tech. Welcome, ladies. I'll let you introduce yourself and pretty briefly tell us what Conduit Tech is and where people can find out about it, just in case there are listeners that don't know. But we're going to tell a slightly different story today.
I'm happy to start off.
Yeah,
I'll kick it off with my personal intro, and then Shelby, turn it over to you. So I'm Marisa. I'm one of the co-founders of Conduit. Personal background was software engineering, and then after that, I went to go work at a private equity firm as a junior investor. That was actually kind of my first exposure to lots of different types of businesses, home services. The skilled trades was one of those businesses that I saw in that, and honestly just developed a huge amount of respect, a huge amount of interest in the space. It's incredibly important from an economic perspective, from a human health perspective, from an energy efficiency perspective, and I was just really enamored. Kind of learned early on that I didn't love finance and wanted to figure out how to support those who were making, the real stuff in our economy, making the real stuff happen. So went to business school and was really interested specifically in the skilled trades at that point in time, knowing though that I wasn't myself a tradesperson and I'm like a very weak person. So what could I do to support? I was lucky to meet Shelby in that kind of through our business school environment, and it launched off this journey about 5 years ago now, I guess is when that was. Wow, that makes me feel old. But yeah, it launched off this journey of us reaching out to people, learning about the space, and eventually coming to work on Conduit. I left out a ton of details, so Shelby, I'll turn it over to you.
No, it's so similar to Marisa. Was working in other industries. I most recently was working in industrial energy efficiency and was just having this question of like, what can we do to accelerate energy efficiency in a way that's much more tangible and livable every single day? I felt so far from really like the day-to-day implications of home design and what every consumer is thinking about. And I was thinking about how much energy goes into the creation of toilet paper, which was a very important topic in 2020, but really not one that necessarily got me out of bed every single day. And so I started exploring, and both Marisa and I were simultaneously exploring this whole concept of residential energy efficiency, home performance, all of that, and had so many questions, but no answers. And the more we dug in, the more curious we were, and the more we realized how little we know. And I think that's probably a theme for our entire Conduit journey, is the more we learn, the more we realize how much we don't know. But I think it became clear to us that there was such an underserved market when it came to contractors. They were being left out of really important conversations about how can we move forward, residential energy efficiency, home comfort. I know, Jeremy, we've talked a lot about how when you start with home comfort, energy efficiency follows. And that was that unlocked so much. But as we thought about that, we realized nobody was hearing that perspective and nobody was supporting contractors in navigating that challenge. And that's where we started digging in. And it all started with research and the kindness of people like yourself, being willing to answer a random email or a random LinkedIn message or a cold call. So we are so happy to be here.
So first, tell everybody what Conduit Tech is, just for listeners that don't know. We assume everybody knows because we all love it and we talk about it every day, but tell everybody what it is and what it does. And then I want to hear the aha moment, like where were you like, we're going to work on that thing? Yeah.
It's so in short, Conduit is a LIDAR powered design and sales platform for residential HVAC contractors. And and what you can do with Conduit is you walk into a home and you run your entire sales process using Conduit. You talk to the customer about their comfort concerns. You then start and build out a project, which is going to be your load calculation. You do a 3D home scan, takes about 5 minutes using LIDAR sensors in everyday devices like iPad Pros. You complete your 3D scan. You update any of the smart defaults that we create for you to generate a load calculation. And with both that load calculation, that 3D model, as well as customer education materials, information about comfort concerns, you can actually start really getting to an answer on what that homeowner needs right there and then, but engage the homeowner in the entire process. That's where we started. We've continued to add on to that because we saw the core value proposition was engaging that customer with design. We've built out reporting around equipment selection. We've built out airflow, room by room airflow reports, and we've recently started building out a whole just set of functionality around photo annotations and floor plan mockups so we can help people actually hand off that information to the install team. And so you asked about like that aha moment. I think each piece has sort of fallen out of what we initially learned. I mentioned like everything we learn, we then learn how much we don't know and how much more we can better serve our user base. And that really undergirds our entire product development process. But if I had to tell you where our aha moment was, it came like a year and a half after we started working on Conduit. We had so many different ideas, and depending on which phase you talk to us during, we may have been working on financing. We may have been working on predictive maintenance. We may have been working on something else. But I think that aha moment came from when we started building this design and sales platform and starting to hear people be like, when can I have it? I will sign an LOI for tens of thousands of dollars just so I can get first access to this tool. That was a different answer. And that's when we realized, okay, we have something here that's going to change, that's going to be meaningful to a contractor's workflow.
So when did you start thinking about load calculations in particular? When were you like, this is a super important piece of this sales thing that we're building right here?
I'm happy to take a stab at this. I mean, just to get into, I don't know, Jeremy, stop me if I'm telling you too much of the nitty gritty.
No, that's what we're here for. I love it.
So Shelby and I, we met, we were exploring, we were going on a lot of ride-alongs, we were having a ton of conversations, frankly, with anyone who would give us their time. And we got incredibly lucky that we were able to, through that, connect with amazing experts like yourself. The sort of timeline of events was that we fell in love with the market. We wanted to work with residential HVAC professionals. We knew that this was a very important space to be focusing. In the beginning, we were, much more broad. Should we work with homeowners, utilities, or suppliers? But we just realized these are the businesses that we like. These are the people that we find the most kind of camaraderie, they're the most charismatic connections with. How can we focus here? And we want to figure out what the needs of this segment are. We don't just want to come in and say, oh, we're like tech people who can build something. Like, that's not at all what we wanted to do. We wanted to spend as long as it took to understand what are the real pain points that you face on a daily basis, and what can we do then to build to support for those pain points. It's funny because we actually raised money before we knew that we were going to focus on load calculation. We raised money focusing on an entirely different idea, which to Shelby's point was in the kind of predictive maintenance space. We started to go down the path of that idea. We had a call with our investors and they were like, aren't OEMs going to do this? And also, do either of you know anything about hardware? And we were like, oh yeah, we don't. We're just two young people who just thought we could have, a really big impact here. And we love these businesses. We love this market. That's our conviction. That's why we raised money. That was a really good wake up call for us. This was like almost exactly 3 years ago that we started having these like pretty big heart-to-heart conversations saying, hey, we need to pivot. We need to find a better direction that is more in line with our skills, more in line with what the market needs, and also something that we uniquely might be positioned to build. And through those, I actually think it was in that period, Jeremy, that we first connected. I think I sent you a note saying like, I'm from Cincinnati, and I see that you happen to have Cincinnati on your LinkedIn profile. Would be amazing to connect if you happen to have 10 minutes. I have a lot of questions about what your job is like. And you were so incredibly kind. You responded so quickly. And we started to have conversations like the one that we had. That conversation absolutely was a part of the aha moment, that sales is technical. In residential HVAC, it is a technical task. It is a very difficult task. To do it well, somebody who's doing that task has to be the master of many different types of operations in the home. The ability to connect with a homeowner, the ability to understand the homeowner's body language, the ability to understand the structure of the space, an understanding of the equipment that's there. There's so many tasks that are so difficult. That was sort of where we started to realize, okay, we can make those tasks come together in one system. We still have a lot that needs to be built to fully realize the vision of everything happens in Conduit, but we can start to unify some of those tasks. We can start to make some of them a little bit easier. So they're available to somebody on site. The results can be generated on site, and it is a part of the sales process that the homeowner understands. It's the technical element of it is a part of the value proposition that contractor brings to the table in that on-site experience. So I think it was really through those conversations, through our investors telling us, like, do you know what you're doing? Take a step back, focus on something better. Us having conversations with people like yourself, like Alex Meany, like Chris Morin, experts who were willing to give us their time when we were essentially just students hoping to learn. And then that sort of insight that sales is technical and sales is incredibly difficult. That was where we started to build. And it was about 3 years that we officially launched on this direction of the company.
So when did you look at LIDAR and be like, hey, Manual J, LIDAR, yeah, that makes total sense. Let's do that thing. Like, how did that whole conversation start?
Yeah, I mean, we wanted to really root this in what's the pain point felt by a residential HVAC contractor. So we never wanted to say, like, what's the cool technology that we can bring to the table? We wanted to start with what's the problem, and then we're going to go out and we're going to explore all the technologies and figure out which one is the best one to solve that problem. So we started with this problem. Sales is hard. Sales is technical. What can we do to solve or help with that? And we were really lucky to have an amazing set of technical advisors, an amazing set of technical investors, and a really fantastic VP of engineering at the time, Gavin, who was working with us to help us evaluate what are those technologies that we can bring to the table. We had this incredibly long, I think if you were to look back at it now, it's probably like 20 pages of a Google Doc of what are the possible solutions to this challenge of technical sales. Sales is hard. And we were evaluating a lot of different things. We were evaluating like those rolly devices that you can roll on the outside of a home and it will tell you how much you've measured of the home. We were evaluating just photo technology. We were evaluating taking videos of the inside of the space and having somebody else build a model. And then ultimately, right around that time, Apple was also maturing their, maybe maturing is the wrong word, but the products that were in market that had LiDAR sensors were mass adopted. They were the iPhone Pro models, the iPad models. So it was sort of the right timing for us to evaluate that technology. It was just one of many. We started to look at the results of what was that yielding relative to everything else and realize this is usable and also incredibly impressive. It is amazing to see this come together in the home that could really support what we're trying to do here. And so from there, we took the direction of building on top of that technology.
So you guys were just your personal relationship. You met when were you in college together? I wasn't clear on where you actually met, like where you connected, and then you started. Was it like a incubator? Like where did you end up meeting at?
Unfortunately, I was much older than being a college graduate, but we met post grad school for me. Marisa was still in grad school, and we met through our grad school community. So like truthfully, in a true like COVID love story kind of way, we met over Slack. It was a shared awesome Slack community for people in our graduate school, and we met in person shortly thereafter. But yes, it is the online experience. And
when were you like, let's collaborate, let's go into business together? Like, how did that whole, if you met in that community, like when did that relationship translate into like the beginnings of Conduit Tech that we just talked about?
Honestly, like pretty instantly, which was kind of wild. So we met, Marisa had posted, this is way in the weeds, but Marisa posted on Slack, like, on this shared Slack community, hey, is anyone looking at how you can accelerate residential energy efficiency and what ways you can support contractors? That was the gist of the question. I had simultaneously been looking at this, doing build sprints with other teams, building other like prototypes. And I replied like, yes, I have been, but I have zero answers for you. And she separately messaged me and was like, hey, I see you're currently in Boston. I'd love to meet in person and just discuss. And we met in person the next week and just like hit it off instantly and decided to work together the following week. And when I say work together, we were both still employed in other jobs, thinking through many other issues. But we decided like in our free time, we're going to just we're going to research this together and share what we learn. We're so curious, like how can we continue to learn about this space and figure out what solutions might be there. And we set a goal of like, let's do 10 hours a week for the first 6 weeks. I know for sure that it both became more like 20 hours a week in those first 6 weeks. And after those first 6 weeks, we were like, I don't even think we had a touch point. We were like, do you want to keep going? Do you want to keep going? We kept going. And now here we are 5 years later. And it honestly, like each step, it just sort of felt natural for us to keep going. And that's what brought us here today, is that every step of the journey, we unlocked some additional knowledge, some additional excitement that kept us motivated and wanting to keep going. Before we even incorporated as a company, before we received any funding, before we built any product, it was actually just the motivation and loving connecting with the industry. And to Marissa's point, all of this community was willing to give us time to build something in the hopes that it might support everyone in the industry, even if not themselves directly. And that was so motivating to us. It still is really motivating today, is what can we do to support this industry that has also supported us in trying to build something and hopefully build something impactful.
So had either of you dealt with contractors at all prior to this experience? Like the Conduit Tech, journey, had you ever had workings with contractors directly or anything like that, or was this your first experience with contractors?
We were both. Oh, sorry.
Yeah,
Jolly.
I was going to say it was my first experience. That research, like the research phase, certainly was. Yeah. Sorry, over to you, Marisa.
No, not echoing that entirely. It was definitely the first time spending a decent amount of time working with residential HVAC professionals. I mean, a little bit of experience maybe through my experience in finance, but certainly nothing that bordered on the level of like having a personal conversation, getting in someone's truck with them and going on a ride along with them, which was, I'm still shocked that people let us do that, to be honest with you, in those days.
We give off a gruff appearance, but we're pretty nice people here in the HVAC world.
incredibly nice. I have to say that is why this 5-year journey has, I think, been such a pleasure for the entirety of it. And sometimes I speak to friends who are also working on companies trying to get something off the ground. And I feel like we've had it easier than some people because we have amazing customers. We have amazing
You have amazing ideas too. I mean, so let's not, you guys got to take a little bit of credit for the thing that you thought about and started creating. The people that said yes, including myself, are blown away by the idea to begin with. So, the HVAC space is typically not that forward thinking and hasn't been like, there's technology and maybe the OEMs when they come out with the next thing, but it's usually pretty similar to the last box with a few new features. It sort of reminds me of Apple and Android at this point, where they're like, yeah, okay, we'll buy that thing because this thing's not going to work in a couple years, but it's not really that much better than the last thing we had. So like when you guys came along with your idea, it's groundbreaking stuff. And I mean, we were super impressed and we still are. And it's clearly changing the industry, and there's followers now. There's other products that mimic yours and were like yours, but you guys were first to market and had the idea first, as far as I know. I mean, I don't know, the history of these other companies, but the first I ever heard of this was you guys. So that is the reason that I think you were getting so many yeses. But what was it like from you never having worked in that area before, and then stepping into the contractor world for the first time and experiencing all the mechanical side of it and the daily, ins and outs and all of that? What was that like for you guys?
Overwhelming, for sure. I mean, I think we just quickly developed. I think one thing that Shelby and I have been really careful about and really matters to us is that we wanted to take the time to develop a strong empathy with individuals working in incredibly hard jobs, right? Like it is really hard to work in residential HVAC. And I think when we started to dig under the layers there to understand through ride-alongs, through reading the textbooks, through reading every single blog post we could find, how complicated it is. If you're not really in the trades, you do not understand. I think it's nearly impossible to understand how challenging and technical and rapidly moving these fields are. And so I think one thing that we did feel early on was, just cracking open the Manual J textbook for the first time, for example. Holy smoke, because this is like 3D chess. There's
like
so
we're
many
back in
things that you have to
college.
consider. Yeah, and so many real world constraints that are not written into the textbook. So many, homeowner constraints that are not written into the textbook. Like, how can anyone do this? And I think we had to keep ourselves open-minded to really being okay operating without full information, and really overcompensating for that by having as many conversations as we could and trying to have as much real world touch points, so ride-alongs, as possible, so that we could learn and we could see how do people do the job. We by no means, by the way, have anything close to the level of knowledge of residential HVAC that a true residential HVAC professional has. We've been able to learn a small sliver of the field. We've been able to take a perspective on a small sliver of the field, and that's really only been because of the time of people who were willing to give us access to their calendars, access to their knowledge, those who've written the textbooks that we were able to read. We just sort of absorbed it like sponges and tried to stay as open-minded and empathetic to everything that we were learning in that process. And I actually, it's funny, I really do have to push back on you saying this, that trades are not technology forward. I think that what the trades are is really honest about what technology matters and what technology doesn't matter. I think that you will never meet a savvier business person than someone who is, really thinking about the P&L of their family business. And that is what characterizes so much of the trades. And I think if it's not that exact situation, it's that ethos across so much of the trades. And so we have been kept incredibly honest. People will tell us what is a bad idea. That's actually helped us a lot. I think that maybe that's also where sometimes things are challenging, but also easier for our team, is that we're never going to put something out there that somebody hasn't really helped us validate, and people are honest with us about what they need and don't need.
This week's episode is brought to you by NoSo. Ready to 10x your technicians? Field service teams are missing out on revenue. NoSo's AI ensures you capture every opportunity and finish every job with zero paperwork. From diagnosing tricky issues on site to automatically writing up job reports, their AI assistant, NoSo, supports your technicians at every step. To learn more about NoSo, click the link in our show notes or head to their website at noso.so. So this is brought an interesting question to my mind. Not too long ago, I interviewed another HVAC guy that has a tech product in the HVAC space, and he's a founder, and he's trying to bring it to market and stuff like that. One of the comments that he made was that he felt like dealing with the P companies, private equity, because there's a lot of that going on, the P companies versus the family companies, that it was easier to show the P companies his value proposition because they had a more logical understanding of their books and their business than a lot of the family-run companies. I think that's what he was saying, something like that. But basically, he felt like he had an easier time showing the value proposition to the P-owned companies than the family companies. You guys have any thoughts on that?
That's interesting. I would say that hasn't been our experience. And I think what's been really cool during our Conduit journey is we work with everyone from an owner operator all the way up to those PE-backed companies. And I will say, like, the number one unification of like what makes somebody a target customer for us is, are they trying to grow their business? And do they want to continuously improve? That is like the number one thing we look for. And we see that at every size. And I think of one of our customers who's an owner operator. He wants to give the best customer service every single job he does. And he has decided he sold a much larger company off, and he's like, I just want to remain a one person entity. And I think about him all the time because he's doing, like, you would never guess that. You go on his website, you see the entire customer experience he's delivering, and it doesn't look like that, but he wants to do this himself. And at the same time, he was like, Conduit's a no-brainer for my business because that's how I'm going to deliver part of my great customer experience. And so I think for us, it really, we find that the value proposition resonates. And what we find is the businesses that aren't private equity backed are more likely to find us because they're hearing about us in their circles. They're looking to, they're looking for different ways to grow. And of course, we work with many private equity backed ones that hear about us either at the portfolio company level or at the corporate level. And we see that value proposition work both ways. But I think for us, that's been one of my favorite parts of growing Conduit is working with users of all different types of companies in all but Hawaii and Alaska, and just being able to see like this works for them, no matter their market, no matter their size.
How many users do you have currently?
I don't pay attention to our users, but we work with over 700. And by pay attention to our users, I mean number of users. I pay a lot of attention to our individual users.
Let's go ahead and qualify that statement.
Yes, that was really important for the record. You're welcome to leave that in as is, but I love our users. I only keep track of the number of like companies because that the number of users changes a lot more from an order of magnitude per day. So it's 700 companies that we're working with today across the country.
So, I mean, where I was going with that is, what's it feel like? What's the difference? What's your reaction from when you're like, hey, we got 5 users using this to we have 100 or 500 or whatever it is now? Like, how has that reaction changed from you? Like, what was it? What did it feel like when you first, saw those first few users coming onto your platform and really using it, and not people that were just poking around like me, who are not in the field every day, but people actually taking it out every single day and using the product, and you're like, damn, they're really using this, to where you are now. Like, tell us a little bit about that.
I'll just speak for myself. It's and Marisa has done so much, even more customer success than I have, but I just love it so much. Today, actually, right before this call, I was talking with one of our business owners in Virginia, and he told me he just had his first $1 million month last month. And I was so overjoyed when I heard this, but he was definitely in our first 150 customers. And it was so cool talking to him because I was asking him a few questions. He was doing me a favor personally. And I was like, this is amazing to see what your business has accomplished independent of Conduit, but being able to work with you for the last 1.5 to 2 years and see what's happened to your business just as our business has grown simultaneously. It's, I don't know. I took that question in a very different direction, but I just
it's really, the response is really cool. That's a really, really cool thing to be able to see your product track with their product and knowing that it's integrated into their business process. So that is an interesting thing too. What's it like to see people, first, because when you first get Conduit Tech, I'm assuming, people are like, hey, this is an okay tool. Let's see how it fits in. We do want to do load calculations, but maybe we're going to have one guy use it to see everybody like, this is our sales process. This is the way, this is what we're doing. Talk a little bit about seeing that transformation in companies when they go through that little bit of metamorphosis there.
You hit the nail on the head. There is a process there. Yep. Often what we see for a lot of the companies we work with, small teams, bigger teams, whatever the size here is, they're not going to force their salespeople to use a tool, right? Salespeople have a process. It's a very individual job. It's a very stylistic thing. So people will have access to Conduit when it's purchased for them, and they will have a choice. Do they want to use it or not? And what's amazing to see is that often the pattern is that one person, maybe a more kind of like early adopter style personality, somebody who loves getting the newest phone, somebody who loves having that newest speaker, whatever it is, they're going to really pick it up and they'll start to see results. And then others on their team will also start to see those results. And at Conduit, we really invest in training and customer success and support. So as people pick up the platform and start to use it, we're there where they need to be learning from us. And we're there to support them as they're using it in the field. And I think that is just amazing to me to see that evolution, which can be very fast. It can be like a matter of days or matter of weeks of people saying like, okay, I see this person is having success. The results are translating to conversion. I'm also going to start to use the tool. Of course, there are people out there who have done their process the way they've done it for years and years and years, maybe decades. And there are like legitimate reasons why somebody might not want to ever change their process. We completely respect that. What we feel a lot of pride in is when somebody opts to use the tool because they see that it is going to be personally worth it to them. I think that is like the only word that really comes to mind is pretty magical for us when we see that, when we can feel a customer buying in. Yep. That is really magical. And it's been that way when we saw that with the first customer. I honestly feel that way still with now our 700th customer. It really doesn't change, actually, no matter how our user base scales, because it is, like, again, going back to the skilled trades are very, very honest. In residential HVAC, people will not use a tool if it does not generate results for them. And so we see people voting with their feet. We see people voting with their time. And it is, again, to say it again, it's magical when people choose to spend their time with Conduit. We feel incredibly honored. That's why we've invested a lot in training and support, and why we want to continue to grow that side of our business as well as our user base scales, so we can provide that level of experience and kind of recognize the fact that you are sort of honoring us with your very hard-earned time. But yeah, it's a wonderful feeling.
What's your biggest, and I'll let each of you probably have different opinions on this. What's your biggest success story so far, like from a customer standpoint, where you've won somebody over and now they're like, really, and you don't have to say their name, but just tell us the story of where, first thing that comes to your mind, like what's your biggest success?
I do have something that comes to mind, and I think about this all the time, but we have one user who is incredibly involved with our team now. In the beginning, he was somewhat of a later adopter on his team. He wasn't necessarily the one who was like, this is so cool, I want to use it right away. But over time, I think in his case, it was a couple of months for him to be like, okay, cool, I see that we have access to this. I'm seeing results from others. I want to start using this. And he came back to me on a training and he was like, oh, I have like time with my children in the evenings now. Like, I'm not actually just like sitting at my laptop and getting documentation done. This has changed the way that I do things. And for him, the benefit to start learning Conduit was, I'm going to see my sales go up, I'm going to see my commission go up. I think now, like, a more lasting benefit is, oh, this is like meaningfully changing how I can use my time in the house, in my own house. Yep. Like, this is quite different. And I just, like, again, that's a magical experience to hear somebody say something like that. It was wonderful because that ended up being a branch that was part of a conglomerate than many other branches. And so those results also translated into kind of financial rewards for Conduit as well. Wow. But it was amazing to see somebody kind of draw the value prop back to like their own really personal priorities.
Absolutely. Shelby?
Oh, there are so many. I think one of them that I was thinking about is there's a business we work with where I think what I love is when people change their process and then they see the results for both their customer and for themselves, to Marissa's point. But there's a business that we were working with in Michigan this is all recently that I learned this, but he was saying, like, I never did load calculations beforehand. I wanted to provide a better level of service to my customer. And he's like, but I saw Conduit. I thought it was a great idea. I implemented it into my business, saw a 15% increase in my sales conversion. And I was actually able to then not only spend more money on marketing to grow our business, but I was able to hire a whole other salesperson to help me. And so for him, not only did those direct sales results have an impact on him personally, but and his confidence in delivering the right solution for the customer, but he was able to grow his business at the same time. And I think that's what gets me so excited, is how can we help people do quality work and see the results of that? Because I think when Marissa and I started Conduit, we were like, the best contractors are investing so much time that the customer literally never sees and doesn't know. And so the best contractors might actually be more likely to lose a job to somebody who's able to quote on site and quote faster, or get them an answer faster because they're not doing all this work in the background. And I just, whenever I see that like value proposition play out, that's like one of my favorite instances of impact, because I want to see these really incredible businesses grow, and that gets me out of bed every single day.
Dude, being able to add a whole salesperson based on the implementation of Conduit Tech is insane. That's awesome. That is a great testament to the tool that you guys have built. I want to touch a little bit on, before we're running out of time a little bit, but there's one thing I want to touch on, is the process that you guys went through to get Conduit Tech certified through ACCA as an ACCA Manual J. I recently was involved in a thread. There's another product. I'm not sure if they're using LIDAR or what, but somebody was promoting it, and they were like, somebody in the thread said, hey, well, that's not approved by ACCA. And the guy goes, well, that's just a pay to play anyway. I don't understand. We just refuse to pay for the stamp. I know that you guys, like I happened to be, I forget where I was at, one of the conferences, and we were talking to Wes from ACCA about it. And I'm like, I was asking, has Conduit Tech been approved yet? And he goes, no, but Marisa sure calls me every day checking in to see where that's at. And so that got me thinking it must be a pretty rigorous process. It's not a pay to play thing if you're having to call to check in every single day. So tell everybody what that was like for you guys, like the hustle to try to get that, to get it approved through ACCA.
Yeah, man, we love ACCA and we love West Davis because they have such high standards. It is a ANSI standard for a reason, and they keep that quality bar super, super high. The process is very long. I mean, start to finish for us, it was 2 years of starting to set ourselves down that path, building everything we needed to build, going to their team for feedback, iterating where we needed to rebuild, checking everything. I mean, we went through like thousands of use cases to check with them what does work and what does not work. And Wes is such a patient man because I can be kind of intense when I'm like, we need to get this thing. There's like so many reasons why we need to get this thing. And we wanted to get the standard because we wanted to put a product out there that was at the quality commensurate with what our customers deserved. And we know that that standard exists for a reason. That standard is built into building codes for a reason, because doing quality load calculations is so important for efficiency, for health, for the longevity of the equipment. It exists for a reason. It is not a pay to play, at least, you know, I can speak for our experience with it and our experience with Wes in particular. He is a incredibly technical person. He checks everything and he thinks through every single edge case. He was on calls with us until midnight some days, like 6-hour long calls with the majority of our engineering team, thinking through and literally stepping through our code to understand, where is this going wrong? Where is this number not coming to the right spot? Finding that one thing on that one page of the standard to help us understand, oh, we made a mistake there, let's go ahead and fix it. And it is rigorous, and we applaud any company who's gone through that process. I do think any company who's building in the space should actively partner with ACCA and proactively build to their standards, because it is important to put a product out there that is at the quality level that your customers deserve.
And I think too, a good point is like, even if you think like these guys, like we already know it meets the ACCA standard, we don't need to pay them to say it does. Like, I think even if you think that, like from your experience, what you just described going through that process, there might be pieces of it that doesn't meet it, even if you think that it does, because there's little nuances in the formulas and algorithms that have to be correct, that have to be reviewed. So that's what the whole process is all about. And I appreciate the fact, like I was waiting anxiously because like it's our standard. We're not going to use anything that doesn't, you know, have the ACCA seal of approval on it. Like maybe as a precursor or a tool, but nothing that we're going to put our name on, you know. So I was super excited and happy to see you guys obtain that. And when I saw this other whole entire thread going on trying to say, oh, yeah, this product's cool, you know, it's just as good. We know it is. Like, maybe you do, maybe you don't.
Yeah, that's exactly it, right? Maybe you do, maybe you don't. And to check, there is one very clear way to check, which is engage with ACCA, go through that process with them, make sure that it puts out the results that you'd expect it to put out in all of the cases, right? I think that's what people, maybe that's where some of the details are missed for. I'm not talking about this company specifically, but if you just were coming to the field and you weren't familiar with all of the work that has gone into those manuals, the many decades of work, there are hundreds of thousands of types of homes out there, if not millions. You need to be able to cover off on all of them in a high quality way. And that, I think, is where the quote unquote like devil's in the details. That's why those standards matter and exist.
So tell us what's next for Conduit Tech, like big picture, like where 1 year, 5 year, 10 years, where do you guys see the product going?
Yeah, I mean, we want to continue to support individuals in the skilled trades. We have a lot more work to do to continue supporting in residential HVAC. There are a lot more steps to the on-site sales process that right now do not happen in Conduit. We are forming a perspective on which ones should happen in Conduit, which ones do we have a really good way to support on, and which ones maybe shouldn't. That I think is as we as a company think about how do we continue to focus and build products that people need and can see real benefits to changing their processes for, it will be it will continue to be in the direction of how can we support the on-site sale.
So before we go, each of you, if you had one piece of advice that you learned through this journey, if everything else got wiped off the face of the earth and you had to write something on the wall, what would you write on the wall to leave the world behind that you learned during your journey?
Find a good partner.
Find
somebody like Shelby.
I can testify that I personally, from a personal standpoint, is super important. Like, I agree 1,000%.
Yeah.
Because I've had a bad partner. The same way. It went the opposite direction of your guys' relationship.
I would not be here without Marisa. It's like, it is, having a great partner is everything. That would be on the like personal starting a company journey. The thing that I've learned about HVAC is so much equipment is oversized as installed. And and it can be scary to undersize or to downsize, not even to undersize. It can be scary to put something smaller in place. And so that's one of the things that I've learned on like the technical side over these last few years, time and time again. But yeah, find a good partner. That's
an epidemic. And I'm sure, Conduit Tech is exposing that. And we got guys out here, that are even trying to get even more precise than what Manual J does, using utility data and stuff like that. So they're putting even in smaller systems than what Manual J may suggest. So I think that the oversizing epidemic is going to get just more, it's been exposed over the past 10 years. It's gotten a lot better, but I think even more as people really start doing load calculations and they have their own aha moments with, your guys' technology or whatever they're using to do load calcs, they're going to find out that, man, wait a minute, that's a lot of the angst that comes from using a load calculation for the first time is, and seeing that sizing, they just can't wrap their head around it, and they want to start padding the load to, try to make it say what they think it should say. And that, that it's really during the training process from our standpoint, your standpoint, one of the things is getting people comfortable with what they're seeing coming out of the software, because a lot of times that is a barrier for entry for people, is they just don't believe the results. All right. Well, I appreciate you guys giving me your time today to tell your story. Thank you for coming on. I've had great interactions with both of you. It's been awesome being involved in your journey from, sort of beginning to end anyway, from the product beginning to end. And I interacted with both of you in different ways. Marisa came to me early on and we had great conversations. Then all of a sudden it was a product, and I met Shelby doing the webinars with MeasureQuick a couple of years ago, I think now, maybe even two years ago, probably now. And got to know you, and I just value my relationship with both of you guys, and I love your product. By the way, we do have a training. You guys haven't even heard this yet, but we're putting on a training. It's called Permanent Load Reduction Through the Eyes of Conduit Tech. So it's sort of teaching a sales process, a home performance process using Conduit Tech. Sort of where the idea came from is when we teach the residential design for quality install class for ACCA, they make us use their speed sheet. They're like, it's brand agnostic. You need to teach it on the speed sheet. This is how they understand what's really going on behind the scenes. And it is a great teaching tool. So that got me thinking about, in the field, we're not really using speed sheets and spreadsheets, but we do have Conduit Tech. So the training takes Conduit Tech and uses it the same way we'd use the speed sheet out in the field to expose home performance opportunities while they're doing the load calculation. So pretty cool stuff.
That is so cool. That's absolutely amazing. Let us know if you need any help on it. That is, I'm floored. That's amazing.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I think it'll be a really good, fun class for people. So.
Yeah. Well, Jeremy, thank you as well. You have been an important part of this journey with us. So we really appreciate your time and your expertise.
I'm happy to be a part of it. It's amazing what you guys have created. It's moved the industry forward more than almost any single thing that I've seen in the past 10 years. So love it.
Oh my gosh, thank you.
Too kind. Seriously, too kind. You've amped our ego up coming out of this, but we really appreciate all the help you've given us.
That's what we're here for. And Marisa, I know you're rooting for Joey B, Cincinnati.
Yeah.
We got to keep the Cincinnati thing alive. You'll have to catch a game at some point while you're up there.
I will. Yeah, absolutely.
Or down there. Where are you at geographically in relation?
I'm based in New York.
Oh, New York. So when you're down there.
Yeah.
All right, ladies.
Good to see you, Jeremy.
Have a great one. Great to see you again. Bye.
Thanks, Jeremy.
Hey, everybody. Thanks for stopping by. If you'd like to learn more about the podcast or HVAC 2-home performance and any of our services, be sure to check us out on our website at HVAC2homeperformance.com. Also, be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel at HVAC2HP and find us on Spotify and Apple. While you're at it, leave us a review. The HVAC ADHD Vodcast is produced and edited by the team at Palm Tree Pod Co. Anthony Palmer is the executive producer. Bo Patton is our technical director. Nolan Gray is our audio engineer. And Caitlin Krings is the head of digital. The content for this episode is created by me. Hooday, go Bengals!